Alright, you guys, so I finally finished the conclusion of Part 2, Season 2's Wednesday, currently on Netflix, and I'm here to tell you what I thought about it. Be warned, there will be some spoilers. So if you're ready to watch my thoughts and opinions, don't go anywhere. Stay right here. So Season 2 starts off with seeing Wednesday still in a coma after her last encounter with Tyler. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I really wish Netflix had given us all of Wednesday, up front instead of breaking it up into two parts, but, what happened, and I was able to catch up to everything, so here's my thoughts on it. One thing I really enjoyed about this season was the trio dynamic between Enid, Wednesday, and the newcomer, Agnes. Even though Enid and Wednesday actually has a great relationship, you have one that's already, colorful. You have Wednesday, who's dark and she's gothic. She likes to be alone. She doesn't like to be bothered. Where you have Enid, who's more friendly. She's outgoing. She's outspoken. It was cool for them to add another third party member to this, Agnes, who's, Wednesday's biggest super stalker, biggest fan. She's trying to do everything to please Wednesday. She's trying to make a friend out of Wednesday. Wednesday doesn't really want to have nothing to do with her, but yet sees her as a potential way to help her, solve more problems. She has this ability where she could turn invisible, and Wednesday exploits that by using her ability to help her solve, certain things during the course of the show. And I like that. I like the fact that, Agnes actually played a part in this show. She gave a different kind of vibe to the show, and her inclusion really was needed, I felt. Okay, but we start off with seeing Wednesday waking up from her coma, and she's greeted by none other than Principal Weems, who has now become her spirit guide. Now, her whole point of being there is to try to help Wednesday regain her powers that Wednesday currently has lost. Now, Wednesday is still haunted by her premonition, seeing Enid unalived, and she feels like Tyler has something to do with that. So her whole plan is to try to stop Tyler and whatever nefarious plans he has for Enid and Wednesday. Now, that plan gets abruptly halted when Tyler's mother and her brother actually shows up from years of being thought of presumed dead. Turns out that Wednesday's brother, Pugsley's zombie friend, who has been eating everybody's brains and restoring himself back to human form, his plan is actually to restore his sister's health because she's dying from the hide within her. And he's going to use the machine that he built years ago when he was a student in Nevermore to try to remove the hide from her completely so she can be healed and be human fully. While all this is going on, Principal Dort has Bianca's mother hostage and is using Bianca and blackmailing her, saying, hey, you need to use your siren song to siren Wednesday's grandmother into putting a large donation into Nevermore. Also, he can steal the money for himself and, ride off into the sunset. We have a Freaky Friday moment in this season where Enid and Wednesday actually swap bodies, and now they have to figure out a way to return to their normal selves. It's a pretty interesting scene. You see Edith, trying to be Wednesday. Wednesday is really not trying to be Enid. She's more just trying to figure out a way to get back into her body. And we learned that when Wednesday said she was allergic to color, she wasn't saying that hypothetically. She really meant like, hey, I'm allergic to color. We didn't get much of the Nightshades working together in this. It was really just them with their own, dark issues going on that they had to deal with on their own, which was cool, but it kind of got a little bit mixed up and hard to follow at some points. You got Bianca, she's doing what Dort's telling her to do because she's trying to keep her mother safe. And then you got Enid, she's suffering from her own issues where she learns that now she's an alpha and she can wolf out at any moment and actually be permanently a werewolf forever and will never be able to return back to her normal self. Not only that, on top of that, now she has to worry about being hunted by the pack of her own. And then we have Wednesday. She's trying to figure things out. She's trying to keep Enid alive, but then she's also trying to regain her powers. But then her premonition changes from Enid into someone in the Wednesday Addams family actually being the one that gets murdered. And then we kind of go into the backstory of how everything all came to pass. We see that Wednesday's dad, who was actually a student in Nevermore, he also had powers like Pugsley, where he had the electricity. Now, it turns out that Slurp, whose real name is actually Isaac Knight, was the student in Nevermore who tried to use Wednesday Addams' dad and his electric powers to heal his sister's abilities and remove the hide from her body. Now, Gomez Addams was actually Isaac's best friend back when they were students in Nevermore. But Isaac tricked Gomez into using his powers, and he was going to basically take his life by trying to save his sisters. Were it not for Morticia Addams actually stopping and sabotaging the machine, he might have actually been able to accomplish his goals. And we actually find out the origin of Thing was actually attached to Isaac's hand this whole time. So Thing is a part of Isaac. Morticia actually cut Isaac's hand off, and they've been keeping Thing as a family member this whole time. I think it's cool that they gave Thing the whole backstory. I think it was cool to actually find out where Thing actually originated from and how he all, came to be encountered with the Addams family. I like what they did with the two antagonists in this season, Isaac Knight and then you have Principal Dort. I feel like Isaac Knight's story was actually entertaining. Principal Dort, not so much. His felt kind of a little bit underwhelming, but still I understood that he was basically playing everybody from the start, just trying to, use Morticia's grandmother to basically fund Nevermore, just so he could steal the money and run off with it on his own. I feel like they didn't explain too much about Principal Dort's reasoning behind all this. I mean, you became the principal of Nevermore just so you can, bring back its reputation into greatness, just so you can bribe Bianca into sirening Morticia's grandmother into putting in all this money just so you could steal it and run off into the sunset, which kind of just felt like a typical criminal act. There really wasn't no real big reasoning behind it. It was just like, all right, I just want to make her donate this money to Nevermore just so I can take the money for myself. I feel like Isaac Knight really was the real antagonist in season 2, and him actually being in this part of season 2 made the show actually more watchable compared to what they was trying to do with Principal Dort. He decides he's going to use Pugsy's electrical abilities to charge his machine and then continue to use it to separate the hide from his sister's body. Only she had a different plan in mind. Instead of, separating the hide from her body, she decides, hey, I'm going to take it out of Tyler's body because she wants to save her son. She doesn't really care no longer for herself. She's like, you have a longer life to live than me. I want to save you. I don't want to worry about me this time. So they trick Tyler into putting him on the machine. Tyler doesn't want to be on the machine because he's like, hey, I don't want you to take, my gift away from me, but she does it anyway, and they strap him to the machine where eventually Wednesday comes and frees him so that he can have his revenge on his family. And then we get this big climactic fight between two hides between Tyler and his mother, which ends in his mother's tragic death. Well, actually, before that, I did skip ahead. There was one scene where Isaac did actually get a hold of Wednesday and then bury her alive, where Enid and Agnes had to go and save her and rescue her. But in order to do that, Enid had to go full wolf and then transfer him into her, werewolf form to dig Wednesday out of the ground, which now, Enid is potentially forever a werewolf. This is where the show pretty much becomes more entertaining at this point, because now we have to figure out what's going to happen to Enid, and I guess they're going to continue this at some point in season 3, because now Wednesday is going to have to go and search for Enid and rescue her. Wednesday struggling with the relationship with her mother, and then Morticia struggling with the relationship with her mother. So it's like, it's a big family issue going on with the Addams family here, and this is potentially why Wednesday's powers is not working for her at this moment. Weems explains to Wednesday that in order for her to regain her powers back, she would have to potentially fix things with her link with her mother. And Wednesday doesn't really have any interest of really having a relationship with her mother outside of being her daughter. Overall, I will say that I think that season 1 of Wednesday still was a better season. I feel like I enjoyed season 1 a little bit more, though season 2 was a pretty good follow-up. I still think Jenna Ortega does a great job as Wednesday Addams, and I can't wait to see what they do if they do actually put out a season 3, which I'm hoping they do, because we still have to figure out what's going to happen with Enid, who actually went through a lot in this season as well. She's fighting the fact that she might be an alpha and be hunted by her own pack. She's also going through the issues of Agnes and Wednesday, who she's a little bit jealous about, that Agnes is trying to be Wednesday's new BFF. But eventually things actually play out interesting, because, her and Agnes actually become pretty close friends. They actually have this really, cool dance scene at the end of the show, which I thought was pretty cool. Not only that, but she's also finding out that her new love interest, who's actually a werewolf himself, has a whole love interest back home that he never mentioned. They eventually break it off, and like she says, she's going to take a page out of Wednesday Addams' playbook and stay away from any romantic relationships for a while. I think that Enid actually did go through a lot in this season. She endured a lot. The scare of being an alpha and being hunted, the scare of losing Wednesday, the scare of, switching bodies. It was a lot going on this season, and they, put all of this in just a few episodes. And then you have Bianca, who she's trying to protect her mother. She's being blackmailed by Principal Dort. So it was just a lot going on in this season, but I think they did a really good job with like just telling the story in the way they wanted to be told. It was just a lot of slow pacing, a lot of, things that I felt like they kind of didn't touch on, but at the end of it all, I did enjoy the season. But you guys, I enjoyed season 2 overall. I can't wait to see if we get a season 3, and I would love to know how you guys felt about it. Let me know in the comments what you thought about it. Thank you guys for watching. Once again, remember, it ain't cinema if it ain't absolute cinema. Till next time, you guys, I'm out.